Welcome back to another episode of We Don't Know What to Watch, the podcast about two guys who use the magic Dr. Internet to watch random movies because we have too much time on our hands. And with me this episode and every episode is the Tucker to my Dale, Kyle Mulford, and I'm Noah Saturn.
And we're here today to teach you the dangers of moonshine.
Moonshine! As I shake my fist, as you can see in this audio format.
We really need to put this in video, don't we?
We really shouldn't.
We really
look at us.
We really should. What did we watch today?
We watched a film from 1989 called Redneck Zombies.
Okay, funny thing about that is it's listed as releasing in 89 on IMDb, but everywhere else I looked, it said it was made in 1987 and released, but they never had release dates. It just said it was an 87 movie.
So let's say the late 1980s.
Late 1980s. But it did look like it was made on VHS, and it was one of the first ones to be made on VHS. And so maybe I think they sent it to a bunch of distributors, and finally Troma was one of the first ones that they sent it to, and they finally actually picked it up eventually. So maybe it was just kind of in limbo for a couple of years.
Yeah, that can happen a lot with independent films.
And this is about as independent as you get. Apparently, the budget was so low. One of the trivia items was the budget was so low that they could only afford one breakaway glass bottle.
And you could say that they used that breakaway glass bottle. It appears for that scene and then disappears afterwards But hey, I mean, you've got a prop. You're going to use it, dang it.
Well, at least they got it in the shot and they didn't waste it.
That's true. It was a one-take wonder.
And this was also another little tidbit that I enjoyed was, even though this was a independent movie from 1989 from Troma, it made it into a 90s version of Trivial Pursuit with the question, what film has the tagline, "They're tobacco-chewing, gut-chopping cannibal kinfolk from hell"?
I don't know. I just like to imagine that someone working on Trivial Pursuit just kind of snuck it in there because they were a fan of the movie.
This movie was filmed over 32 days over weekends over like the course of a year. So just 32 days spread out over a year. So that's,
do what you got to do, right?
Pretty quick. And it kind of shows in some of it. I mean, we'll get into the effects of it eventually here. But so Redneck Zombies, 1987 or 89, depending on where you look. It does have a DVD release. It was shot on VHS.
And we watched it on Amazon Prime.
Yes, very important. Go watch it on Amazon Prime.
And then you get a bunch of weird suggestions afterwards.
Oh, I did.
The worst thing about this podcast is like getting really weird suggestions from all your subscription services.
That's true. And actually, the Amazon Prime is my wife's account. So now when she goes to watch stuff on there, she's going to get all of this crap from everything that I watch now.
Nice.
So this one, it started out kind of like last week's movie with a very specific little title card thing. You know, your lower third. How come I can't come up with the word for that?
A nice graphic.
A graphic. There you go. We got Friday the 13th. 2:29 p.m. And then it started counting up the seconds. 2:29, 47, 48, 49. And we started out in a mental hospital like we did with last week's movie. Well, last week. It takes me more than a week. Last episode.
Yeah. So yeah, for some reason it's just another movie with mental house open and closed bookends. Was that to pad out the time? I don't know.
I don't know, because it was only like 84 minutes long, even with this. So
that's true.
And the coincidence is that they were both distributed by Troma, but they weren't connected in any way. So like these guys just happened to give it to Troma to distribute. So it was just sheer coincidence that it starts the same way as the previous movie we watched. And we get kind of weird tilty cameras through the hallways of the mental
tilty camera going through the hallway of the mental hospital, which looks like a high school.
Well, now I saw that they said that they filmed there without a permit.
Nice. Nice.
So I don't know if it was like a real hospital or what, because I mean they must have filmed the outside of it, and then they probably did go to a high school or something to
maybe
do the interior shots. And then we got
like Escape from Tomorrow, which was that movie which was shot incognito at Disney World.
Oh, I never saw that one, but I know about that.
It's not very good, but it's an interesting piece of trivia.
Yeah, because they weren't supposed to be shooting there. But this opening sequence, you get, your mental patients in there, and then you've got two doctors hanging over this guy in a wheelchair who's trying to light a cigarette, and he lights a cigarette and puts it out on his arm, and then they hand him another cigarette, and then they light it for him.
I guess that's just his thing. He's like, he likes to burn himself with cigarettes.
Well, at least he's not burning the other patients.
I suppose. Still, isn't that kind of dangerous?
I would think so. And this gives you a good idea of the acting in this movie, because it's the over dramatic, these are just my friends coming to act in my movie. Well, I say that the patient over there is,
That's the Terry Thomas school of acting. And
the low angle up at their faces. And we get just this opening sequence there. I don't even remember what they were talking about. Were they talking about the sludge that, apparently there was a bunch of barrels of some sort of toxic waste?
Remember, there's even this opening text crawl where it explains the plot of the movie before the movie starts.
And that has something about it.
Like how the one barrel of radioactive waste that's gone missing could be enough to cause the end of the world or something like that.
Yeah, it was like your Star Wars scrolling credit.
Yes.
Only not as cool and not as well written.
It was also written by Brian De Palma.
So, yeah, we get that whole thing describing the movie, and then we go to the mental ward, and then we go out into the army guy driving the Jeep, and he's talking to himself like he's giving us...
he's talking to someone. You see who he's talking to.
He's giving us some, just plot details there. Exposition. And
so, as you know, Bob.
And you find out who he's talking to. He's talking to his dog, who he's trying to get to smoke a joint in the Jeep with him.
I do like to point out the dog is wearing sunglasses. That was a nice touch.
He's a cool dog.
Dogs should wear sunglasses more often. There's a great meme where it's just like a dog with a dog wearing sunglasses with his arm hanging out the window, kind of like when you're trying to feel cool, you got one arm on the windowsill.
Nice.
It's like, stop what you're doing, get in and be cool.
Be cool. Is that like the dog? What's the dog from The Simpsons?
Poochie?
Poochie. He's cool. Or Spud McKenzie. Anyway, I digress on all the cool dogs of the 80s and 90s.
Old man. You old man.
Do any of you get my reference? Before we get to that, though, when they're just doing the opening credits and everything, we get some sort of Redneck Zombie song. And I had to point out some of the lyrics were, "Oh, bitch, without you, my life's doo-doo. I'm a blue dick redneck zombie without you." And that's just some of the lyrics.
I mean, that is that's right up there with Johnny Cash, I'd say, as far as lyrics level,
Maybe he wrote this.
I'm sure he did. It was one of those, he had a weekend off, and then he's like, well, you know what? I've got a couple of, demo tracks that aren't going to go anywhere, so I'll just give it to these guys for free. Maybe they'll make a movie about it.
And that's the rest of the story.
Yes. Thank you, Paul Harvey, you old man.
Oh, showing my age. But there was another Redneck Zombie song at the end, too. So, someone was writing all sorts of Redneck Zombie songs for this to fit the title of this movie.
My guess is the other one was the B-side from the same single that he gave the directors.
That's got to be it.
Mm-hmm.
So we got the army guy smoking a joint in the Jeep with his dog and giving us the exposition of, I've got to take this sludge over to this point B from point A, and I don't know why. So audience, don't ask me why, because it doesn't make any sense.
Wink.
He basically says this doesn't make any sense.
I mean, that's okay. Sometimes the movie can get away with something like that.
Well, when your movie's this bad, you might as well just go that route.
It is fun when I think movies get metatextual and characters occasionally break the fourth wall. I don't know why, but I always enjoy when a character is talking straight to the camera.
Yeah, and the funny thing is this one wasn't actually breaking. It was breaking the fourth wall without breaking the fourth wall. So I guess that's clever.
Maybe it was chipping at it a little bit, acknowledging it, but not quite punching through it like the Kool-Aid Man.
It got the third and a half wall.
Maybe.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And he's smoking joint and gets run off. he swerves on the road, and the barrel flies off into the ditch or whatever, and he goes down and gets it. And our friend Ferd, the redneck, comes and chases him off. And
you think would be a character you only see once, but oh no, he comes back again and again.
Sometimes they come back.
Yes,
and
mostly they come at night.
And he reads the danger radioactive sign on the barrel as "Do not open till Christmas," of course, because he's a redneck and can't read.
I guess you'd think they'd have a better education system, but maybe he was homeschooled, or they were trying to do their own version of like a Christmas story,
or he's just drank too much moonshine,
or it's a dumb joke that I'm overthinking.
I'm pretty sure you hit the nail on the head right there.
Yes, it was a reference to a Christmas story.
So he decides not to open it till Christmas, and the movie's over.
Yep.
No, he decides that it must be a new kind of still. And this is where I noticed that, like, this movie goes into full-on cartoon sound effects, because a bunch of other rednecks come in, and you get, like, the... Like, you don't get that.
Yeah, I guess, it might as well. It does get almost Looney Tunes-y with some of its sound choices. At one point you're just kind of waiting for a like Three Stooges style.
And they get really stereotypical with the redneck hillbillies, just like the voices down and everything. And so 3 hillbillies come over, and a dad and his 2 sons, and they yell at Ferd because apparently he shot up their still and ran away. And
he owes them a new still.
So instead of going out to find a new still, he says, "Ooh, how about this bright yellow one? This is pretty cool."
See, it's a European design.
A new European still. And so then they're like, okay, yeah, well, this looks cool, because why not? And when he was the dad was like describing, like, it smells like fertilizer and it looks like something else, and all of these really weird things. You're like, it must be good then.
Must be perfect.
Must be perfect. And it's green too.
Yeah.
But Billy Bob is one of the kids. Well, the kids are like full-grown adults.
Yeah, it's like
act like juveniles. But Billy Bob has his button-down shirt like unbuttoned and tied up at the top. So, and he keeps telling them that he wants to be called Ellie Mae because he's the big one. So it's funny because the big one wants to be girly.
Yeah, that doesn't really land.
No, it probably didn't land well back then. And then like nowadays, it probably lands even less well.
Oh yeah.
So the whole time, Papa, I want to be called Ellie Mae.
So then after a while, everyone else in the movie calls him Ellie Mae. So at least there's that. They're acknowledging his identity their identity as a trans woman. So.
And I was going to say that is that they don't make fun of him for it. They go, he's just. They do call him weird, but they're like, he's just weird. That's just the way he is.
That's just how she is now. That's Ellie Mae.
I was like, okay. So even the dad is like, okay, Ellie Mae, go pick up the barrel. And he spills it into the corn squeezins.
Not the corn squeezins.
Oh, man. Well, maybe it tastes better with beer.
I were to sum up this movie, it would be 50% redneck shenanigans, so much so that you're expecting Jeff Foxworthy or Larry the Cable Guy to show up at any moment. And then the other half is like a crappy zombie movie.
You might be a redneck if you do anything that these people
if you use a radioactive barrel as a still.
That is definitely qualifying. This is where we went into a side tangent with the movie, though, because the ice cream man comes.
Yeah, the tobacco man.
The tobacco man. Daddy, the tobacco man's here. Can I have some money? Well, get me some tobacco for my pipe, too.
Yeah, that was weird. And just unsettling.
It was, because he drives out into the field in a truck, and he gets out, he's got this gravelly voice, and he's telling the kids, you're gonna... Well, he's got a mask with one eye hole. He looks like the Elephant Man.
I was going to say Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th Part 2.
Yes, it only... His was more of just a straight down mask, where this guy, it was all bunched all over his head, so it was bulging in places, so it really reminded me of, who was it, like John Hurt as Elephant Man?
Yes.
And so he's got this gravelly voice, and they're trying to teach you something in this movie, apparently, because this was like a tobacco PSA, like an anti-tobacco PSA, because he just starts spouting off, well, first you're going to get addicted, and then you're going to keep on using it, and then it's going to rot you from the inside.
Like, okay, so this is because it becomes a PSA for about 3 minutes, and then they get the tobacco and go on their merry way.
The irony is that he's the one selling it, though.
That's true. I mean, at least he's honest, and maybe he just wants to read them the Surgeon General's warning.
It's the "do not try this at home" little blurb at the bottom of a car commercial.
Like a nice episode of Mythbusters.
You don't really want to eat this, but I got to make a living, so could you?
It's a living.
And so we have our little anti-tobacco PSA, and then we go to the campers.
Yeah, so then there's the B plot, which eventually folds into the A plot. The B plot is there's a group of, I guess, white people, group of like rich people or middle class city folk.
I was going to say more middle class, and they do have one token black guy.
That's true.
So. And
we'll get to him. That's Bob.
Yeah, that's Bob. He was a character. I liked Bob.
He got weird towards the end there. Poor Bob.
And his hair just kept getting like crazier and crazier as the movie progressed.
I think it's because it was shot over a period of
over the year, and like he just like kept letting it grow out the whole year. Yeah, it was very inconsistent hair. So we have like 2 guys, 2 girls, and then the leader, and they're all lost in the woods.
Yes.
And
they're hunting for the Blair Witch.
And
one
of them cries into the camera.
I wish they were hunting for the Blair Witch. That was a much better movie. And
that wasn't even that great of a movie.
Yeah, but I think it's still an interesting part of film and film history that is worth talking about.
And it's
still creepy.
That end scene, like the whole movie, I was just bored to tears. But that end scene where he's like sitting in the corner, just staring at the wall, like just freaked me out. I'm like, what the hell is that? Also, I don't know why.
I don't care what anybody says. The 2016 one, the most recent Blair Witch movie, where it's just called Blair Witch, that was still pretty good. Especially the third act climax was actually really good. A lot of people didn't like that movie, but I really did.
I thought it was okay. I thought it was very typical found footage again. I don't think it brought a lot new to the table.
But it was still interesting, and I still had a good time watching it.
Yeah, I'll give it that. It didn't hit for me. But anyway, back to the bad movie.
Book of Shadows?
Yes. I didn't even bother to watch that one. I heard too many bad things.
That film is kind of fascinating, but that's its own podcast episode, honestly. There's a weird game you can play with that movie, and not in getting high and watching Wizard of Oz while you're playing The Dark Side of the Moon.
Which I have done without the getting high part.
Yeah, it's a total myth. That's definitely not.
It does. Like we actually had it. We had a copy where it was the audio track was recorded onto it, so like it was just on there. And there are parts that you can kind of stretch your imagination to believe that it matches up with the movie, but overall,
you have to be high.
You kind of do, because the whole thing really doesn't work that well. There's certain parts that like just happen, like a couple of parts coincidentally match up.
And there's been interviews with the band, with the audio engineer who was in the booth, who was like, "Yeah, that's not, we couldn't do that." The technology at the time, no.
That'd be so hard to like match up your music to a movie, especially since you have to like match it up twice, because the CD only goes so far.
Yeah.
The album
is like 45 minutes at most.
Yeah, so then you have to start it over right at that point and continue throughout the movie. So to match, like have your whole album match the first half and then the same album match the second half. I mean, it's
also, if you play it backwards, if you play Mr. Ed theme backwards, there's a message from Satan, apparently.
Isn't there a message from Satan if you play anything backwards?
Either that, or they say that Paul is the dead Beatle and that the guy playing him and John is still alive or something.
Wow, that was new. I haven't heard that one.
I assume he's hanging out with Elvis and Tupac, but
Yep. Elvis and Tupac are on an island.
And they're working on an album.
They're working on a remake of In the Ghetto.
The guest lyric by Tupac. Nice.
So we got our campers, and they're all lost, but the camper leader says, I'm going to find us a place. It's up over there. I know I can find it, and it's got a pond to piss in.
Yep.
They keep saying it's got a pond to piss in.
Because that's what you do with the pond. You don't really go swimming. Especially when you're out sort of in the wilderness, you don't, just go find a spot where you can go pee or dig like a foxhole or anything. No, you just pee in a pond.
You got to find a pond to piss in.
Pond to piss in.
And, boy, one of the campers, was it Bob that ended up, or was it the other guy? And one of the two campers went, starts pissing in the pond. He goes, man, you're right. This is great pissing in a pond.
I think it was Bob. I want it to be Bob in my heart.
I'm just gonna retcon it if it wasn't Bob and just remember it as Bob.
So meanwhile, we're back to our rednecks, and they're making this. So by the time that all this happens, they're making this moonshine. It comes out green, so it just looks like water with green food coloring, but a nice, very vibrant green color. And then Ellie Mae's job is to go all around town and give out the moonshine to people. I guess they're like subscribers or something.
And this is where I think this is padding, because they're like, what kind of crazy stereotypes can we get in here? Because you've got like a crazy loony hitchhiker that tries to kill him, but steals a moonshine out of the back of his truck and then drinks that eventually. So everybody's going to get the moonshine. By the way, if you haven't figured it out, it's the moonshine that turns everyone into redneck zombies.
The radioactive moonshine?
The radioactive moonshine. And then you get your Texas Chainsaw Massacre house where there's a butcher there, and they've got like a woman tied up, and Ellie Mae's just like, I got your moonshine here.
They're like,
okay, well, let me go get my money. It's like, and he just walks away from it, and then, she's like screaming through her muffle.
And then they give her some too, so that's nice. And then there were two guys watching porn for some reason.
Because there was nowhere else to put the boobs in this movie.
I guess so.
So, and then you get like the bad knockers joke. I like knockers. I like knockers too. And then you hear,
knock on the door.
And he's like, someone's knocking at the door. I like knockers too.
Yuck.
So, yeah, we got rednecks watching boobs on the boob tube. Oh.
And then my personal favorite, Kyle, this might have been your favorite too.
It might be if you're going to say what I think.
At one point he goes to like a woman and a baby, and then she has the baby just like standing sitting in the dryer. It's like a top loading dryer or a washing machine of some sort. Pretty sure. So the baby's just kind of sitting there. It's like, I got your moonshine. Why, thank you. And then she drinks the moonshine and then also gives some to the baby.
Yeah, puts it in one of the bottles and puts the little nipple on there and just gives it to the baby that's standing in the washing machine. So,
and then like, okay, I guess we're just done with that scene now.
Where is it? Okay, I got written down. I always do this. I write down a piece of dialogue that I found funny, and then I forget to write the context. There's a point where someone says, we've got to bury Teresa. I think they get interrupted or something, and like they're burying some...
That's later. So.
Oh, that's later. Never mind. I know where that is now.
Well, Ellie Mae is doing their deliveries. Then Dad.
Sorry.
Well, they're doing that. Then Dad and the two boys are now just getting sicker. Blah blah blah. Oh
yeah,
no.
Because they're drinking it back at the.
They're drinking it back at the campsite. Then things are getting worse, and guess what happens?
The campers run into the crazy zombies?
Well, first they take a moment to get high and have some nice weed for some reason, the campers.
That's right. We have to have more weed in the picture. You got to have boobs. You got to have joints. You got to, you got to get all your
Hit all the demographics right for this audience.
Yes. So, yeah, they get high and start tripping out, and then they do some more of the weird, like tilty camera stuff.
Some bad camera effects that I find kind of funny that anyone can do with the camera from that era. Go into night vision, to just play around with the color wheel,
Yeah, the old VHS. And I have written down that they, something about Monster Mash. Because don't they call it Monster Mash?
Yeah, they're, while they're getting high, then Dad and the boys are getting high too. They also have their own weed that they call Monster Mash.
Oh, that's right. It was that. Oh, and also I've written down that butcher who has the woman kidnapped, he's a freelance butcher. They called him. I suppose you just hire him out to butcher whoever you don't want around.
To different farms where he can process different things for you.
Like,
got a nice
you got a cow here, a cow there you want butchered, or if you've got a woman that you want to get rid of, and you just call the freelance butcher.
A valuable service, I'm sure.
And then we get into all the craziness finally. Like, this is about, halfway through the movie?
Halfway to, it seems like 2/3. This pacing seems to be a bit of an issue for this.
Yeah, especially since they cut away to things like the Tobacco Man. Like, we didn't need that. But again, I feel like that was filler because it's basically like, oh, our movie's only 30 minutes long. Well, let's put another scene in.
Yeah, it's almost like they didn't have enough plot to go with the movie, and you can't really sell a short film the same way that you can sell a feature-length film.
Yeah. So we have Bob and Wilbur fight. Wilbur was the camp leader. I'm calling him camp leader. I don't know if it was a camp or if it was just a bunch of hikers.
I assume camp leader.
Yeah, we'll call him the camp leader, Wilbur. And Andy is another guy. And
well, before that happens, don't forget Lisa and Teresa get up, and then Teresa wanders around, goes looking for stuff, finds the campsite, and then gets eaten.
And she gets eaten all the way down to her jeans, really.
I guess.
And someone saw him or the zombie eating her because he turned around. And then he holds up her skull and sucks the eyeball out of her skull.
I think Lisa found her or something.
Yeah. And so she screams and runs off. And then eventually I see Andy is killed, one of the other campers.
Yeah, because they're two fighting. Because Wilbur and
Bob
are fighting. It's like, you guys. And then Lisa gets mad and starts yelling at everybody. You guys are certainly. There's only one person who could really be the leader around here, and that's Andy. He's supposed to be the rational acting one. Eaten by a zombie.
Yeah. And Bob was messed up on acid at the point.
Yeah.
So he was doing more than just weed there.
And then guess what? Now we get a third plot with the military guys, because now the military guy is coming back, and then he goes to his stereotypical drill sergeant. It's like, listen, you, what happened to that barrel? He's doing his best kind of
Arlie
Ermy impression.
Not very good, but
he does.
He tried. And the army runs into the zombies, and one of them gets their throat ripped out. And
yeah, oh, you should shoot him. I was like, oh, I can't shoot him. I just want to. It's like, oh, I just want to. Yeah, I'm gonna go beat him up instead or something.
And then there was something about having a lot of guys be very feminine, because Bob got very feminine the more the movie progressed. Billy Bob wanted to be Ellie Mae.
And then there was another military guy wearing a scarf.
Yeah, and he was uber feminine, and he runs right into the crowd of zombies. I didn't understand what was going on there.
Yeah, there's some questionable decisions. I mean, I understand that humans are rational, that's fine, but then there's stuff like this.
Well, everybody else is dead. I'll just run right in there.
I guess so. So then, zombie stuff happens.
More
zombies.
This is where Ferd comes back.
Oh, true. Ferd does come back, and he sees the body of the...
And he pops an army guy's head off. He, squishes it.
Oh, yeah. Ferd does become a zombie. Spoilers. But before that, he stops by to see some dead bodies and stuff, and then he says, oh, look, I'm going to get some of this here moonshine. That he drinks the moonshine, and it's not good. Imagine that.
Oh, it's terrible.
So everyone becomes a zombie, even Ferd. And then there's this bizarre kind of, I guess, pit stop on the way where they have this weird autopsy scene where they take one of the zombies that the campers take one of the zombies that they killed, and then they say to Bob, it's like, all right, Bob, you're pre-med, do an autopsy, but you got to figure out what happened. And then he's like, I'm not pre-med, I'm pre-vet. It's like, well, just pretend it's a big cat. Okay, just pretend it's a big cat. And then as he's doing this, he starts tripping out. Where they even get weird special effects, borderline home video version of 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah.
I was half expecting the Star Child or the Monolith to show up, or both.
Or both. We get the Star Child later.
I guess.
But yeah, so we have all that with Bob going crazy on the acid, and then we had all the army stuff, and the timeline is so confused. I just watched it a couple nights ago, and I don't even remember how the timeline
happening, but at the same time, it feels like nothing happens.
Yeah, because then we eventually get to like the end where the last of the campers run into a whole herd of zombies, and basically it's just them fighting off zombies, and everybody except for one girl, must have been Lisa, gets away.
Yeah, so they all die except Lisa and the alcoholic guy. Because remember, there was a guy in every scene he showed up, he was perpetually drinking. Like sort of the guy with the beard and the blue shirt. I think he might have been, because it's kind of one of those weird things that sometimes actors choose to do, like, okay, this is my specific action. I'm just going to be like perpetually eating something or perpetually drinking something. And that can work for something like a comedy when it's a character who just occasionally shows up and they always have a snack. That's kind of funny. But then this movie where you just like every time the camera cuts to him, he's like taking a swig from a bottle, even in front of like a horde of zombies or something. And that's when the breakaway bottle comes in too.
Yeah, who does he hit that with?
Just one of the zombies.
Just one of the zombies. And then he ends up getting killed. And then Lisa actually gets attacked by like 3 or 4 zombies, and she's fighting them off. And then Wilbur, the camp leader, comes over and saves her, just to be instantly ripped in half by the zombies.
I like the fact that, Bob runs past the blue shirt drinking guy, and then at one point Bob tries to realizes that if he acts like a zombie, they'll just go along with him, and then they go and attack someone else. I was like, okay, Bob, you just murdered this person. Because Bob was the villain the whole time.
Waking out on the acid.
If it sounds like we're rambling a lot, it's because this film kind of rambles.
It kind of does. It's just all over the place.
And then there's this weird extended sequence where Lisa runs away and then ends up in this farmhouse in the middle of nowhere. And then she sees some zombies, has to fight some zombies by herself, and then one gets shot by a shotgun, which is probably where the effects budget went.
Yeah, because you think that it's going to be that scene where like she gets away and then end of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Oh no, he jumps out again. Well, no, she ends up going into a house, and then there's zombies in there, and she kills them, and then she gets out and she's running away again and stumbling and everything, and then Zombie Ferd comes back. Then Zombie Ferd comes, and then we get to see a zombie rape a woman. So
it was just downright uncomfortable.
It kind of was. I was like, am I really watching a zombie rape?
I mean, I've seen weirder stuff. I mean, there's like the Evil Dead thing where there's a tree rape scene.
Yes, that's true. But she decides to give him a corn cob to the eye, though. So,
yeah,
and gets away.
Yep. But then, of course, let's talk about some of the zombies. So we find out that, of course, that everyone who drank from the bad moonshine becomes a zombie, including the baby.
Yes,
there's a couple shots like where the baby just kind of smiles and waves at the camera with its zombie makeup on. It's like, okay, that's kind of cute.
Well, and there's several kids, because there was also one place where he delivers to the cellar door of like the storm cellar door into the basement of a house, and I don't know why you're delivering to the cellar door, but 2 kids pop out and they're like, Dad's gone. I think we should try some of this moonshine. And they both take a swig of the moonshine. They show up later, too, in zombie makeup.
I forgot about those kids.
Getting into Dad's moonshine.
Do you keep the moonshine away from your 2 kids?
I do. I keep it in a very high cupboard.
But the cat can still get to it?
I keep it in a tight sealed radioactive container.
I mean, if they read that it says radioactive, then they won't look at it then.
It says do not open till Christmas.
Of course.
So, what other zombies? We had those guys. Basically, everyone you meet throughout the movie ends up, or every hillbilly in the town that you meet ends up a zombie, because it's called Redneck Zombies. So only the rednecks become the zombies, because only rednecks drink moonshine, right?
I think at this point, so Lisa gets saved by the tobacco man, and then we end the film like at the beginning where it kind of shows her in the insane asylum wearing a straitjacket on, and then it implies that she's pregnant with a zombie baby.
Well, because they do like a flash, like, we'll go like an X-ray vision, and we see a little baby on her
or whatever.
Little baby in her stomach.
And then one of the last things we see is we go to our blue shirt drinking guy.
He survived.
He survived. He's in like the cell next to her in the insane asylum. He's like, just kind of looks at the camera, does the big grin. He's like, I don't know, and then just
and then takes another drink.
And then that's the end of the movie.
So we had a final girl and a final guy. So
there was a lot happened, but there was not a lot to this movie.
No, and the effects. The zombie makeup was kind of...
It wasn't bad.
It was okay. It looked like kind of just like droopy wax skin. It looked very cheap.
But
however,
it was functional.
But the blood and then, like when there's a half body on the ground and the guts are spilling out, that all actually looked pretty decent.
Yeah, not bad.
Said some good blood effects, squirting out and everything. And this was a zero budget. Again, I'm going to go back to, this is zero budget, people with VHS doing this with friends, and I actually enjoyed the special effects better than Dead Time.
That's true.
And every time we watch a really low budget movie that does it way better than that one, I'm going to ban Dead Time. And if you don't know what Dead Time is, go back a few episodes.
Oh yeah, that was definitely a movie.
So, who'd you recommend this movie to?
Well, it was at the end of the movie. There's like this thing from Full Moon Pictures. Maybe they helped distribute it.
Yeah, I saw Full Moon labeled at the beginning with the...
was it the Full Moon logo?
It wasn't the Full Moon logo, but it said something about Full Moon production or something like that. So they might have helped with the production.
Yeah, I don't know if it was that Full Moon, who's probably most famous for like the Puppet Master movies.
See, and that's what I was wondering.
A bunch of direct-to-video DVD stuff.
Because it was, distributed by Kaufman and Troma. So, and I don't know if Troma and Full Moon worked together or if this was a different Full Moon. Full Moonshine?
Maybe.
So
I guess I'd recommend this movie for Troma completionists.
That's about all you can recommend it to.
This was a hard sit. For an 80-some minute movie, it felt like a hard sit. Because with a title like Redneck Zombies, it was just kind of boring.
It kind of was. And, I'm one of those that, I can point out good things in every movie. And I will say that the effects were good for such a low budget. I mean, they did a good job with that. And I thought some of the stereotypical hillbilly stuff in the town was the different characters they just brought in. It was almost like little mini skits, like the two guys watching the nudie movie, the mom with the baby in the washing machine, the two kids coming out of the cellar stealing their dad's moonshine. It was almost like a ton of little skits
like
throughout.
A vignette, it's almost like a weird SNL sketch.
Yeah, this would have been a great SNL sketch.
Maybe like an SNL sketch for like a Mad TV, because Mad TV was a bit more esoteric, I think.
Yeah. This seems more like a Mad TV sketch.
Mm-hmm.
But I would only recommend it to Troma completionists. And actually, as I was watching this movie, I realized that I have actually seen this before.
You've seen this before?
I have seen this before, and I'll tell you, when I was in college in Iowa City, there was a little hole-in-the-wall video rental place called That's Rentertainment.
Nice.
And it was literally it felt like a hole in the wall. There was like a door, and there was no windows or anything, just a little door next to an old bookstore, like one of those old-time bookstores that sells all the old out-of-print books and all that stuff.
Second-hand bookstore.
Yeah, second-hand bookstore. And it was right next door, and it's just a little door going in, and you walk in, and it's just like very narrow rooms and stuff, and then there was even like one back room that almost felt, it wasn't doorway, but it felt like another hole in the wall going back there. In this place, this is where we would always go to find your old like Godzilla movies, your old B movies, your Troma movies, your old martial arts movies. So it kind of specialized in all of that stuff.
More genre stuff.
Yeah, more genre stuff and B and Z grade movies.
So you wouldn't necessarily go there to find a copy of like a new release or something?
No, and I can't honestly remember if they also did new releases. They may have, but I know that I always went there to get this kind of stuff. And go and get Trey Parker and Matt Stone's, what they do, Romeo and Juliet.
Like Repo, the genetic opera, I think that was something they did, which was also released by Troma, but that's another story.
And that came out after I was out of college. I saw that later, which you find out that was the one that you find out that what's his face from Buffy has a good singing voice.
David Boreanaz?
No, God, I've watched every episode of Buffy and I can't remember what his name was.
Well, that's
Anthony Head.
Sir Anthony Hopkins?
Sir Anthony Hopkins, no. I think his real name is Anthony Head.
I never watched Buffy, so I mean, this is
It's a good show.
It was kind of before my time because you're old. I'm not.
You should go back and watch it.
I mean, they're working on a reboot apparently, so maybe I don't have to.
That's terrible. Just watch the old show. It's such a good show. Anyway, so yeah, all you Troma completionists, and this wasn't even made by Troma. It was just distributed by Troma, so I don't know how much of a completionist you are.
Definitely more bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, bottom of the moonshine barrel.
Oh.
So on to our new segment that we started last episode. We run into a lot of not so great movies. It's been fun watching all of these because I love doing these random movies.
It's been an experience.
It has been, but we thought we would start recommending a second feature to go along with it. And this week, with all of the hillbilly shenanigans and redneck shenanigans, my suggestion for a double feature is to watch this first and get it out of your system, and then go and watch Tucker and Dale versus Evil. And a lot of people are going to know that, so it might be an obvious choice, but I don't think enough people know that.
I agree, because what Tucker and Dale kind of takes that whole evil redneck sort of thing and just says like, okay, Lord, well, what if they were just a couple of regular guys who just wanted to like go to a cabin in the woods for a weekend, and then these annoying like college kids and city folk keep coming, they keep messing up and dying in weird and hilarious ways.
And then they think that it's the rednecks killing off, that they're like these hillbillies killing us off one by one, when really it's just a series of accidents. And it's like Deliverance, only it's just all a big misunderstanding.
Deliverance is a comedy.
Nobody squeals like a pig in this one.
Burt Reynolds was in it though.
That would have been a great cameo. But it's just so perfect because they take all of those stereotypes from movies like Deliverance and like any other hillbilly, like, oh, they're so scary and they're killers and they're always creepy, and they give them that creepy vibe, but like they do it in such a way that like you go, oh, that totally makes sense of why they're giving off that vibe. Like one scene which just cracks me up at the beginning is they meet him at a gas station, and it's Tyler Labine. That's one thing I didn't mention, is Tyler Labine and Alan Tudyk are the two hillbillies, played to perfection.
They have great chemistry. They definitely feel like they've just been like, these are just two guys who've been friends for a long time. One's kind of the smarter one, but one's kind of the more pure fart. Tyler Labine, I guess he's Dale, or anyway, the one that's not Alan Tudyk. Yeah. He's kind of the more innocent one, while Alan Tudyk is just kind of the more grumpy. They almost have a Bert and Ernie sort of dynamic going on.
Yeah, the odd couple.
Yeah, maybe. Definitely more of an odd couple sort of thing.
But anyway, Tyler Labine's character sees a bunch of these college students, and they're not playing older people or whatever. So he's like, oh, she's so good looking. And Alan Tudyk is like, well, go up and talk to her. Just get some confidence. He's like, all you need is confidence. And so he goes, oh, I don't know if I can do that. He goes, well, whatever she says, just laugh like it's really funny. And so he goes up and he's so nervous. They're getting a bunch of stuff to fix up a cabin, and he's holding a scythe, although I don't know why they bought that. So that's one thing that's kind of like, why are you buying that? Well, he goes over with that and just clunks on the ground and says hi, and then she says something, and he goes, and he replies, and it's just like, and just laughs really creepy because he's so awkward.
It's a great movie, and I wish it got wider distribution than it did, because I think it might have been, I don't know that much history about it, but it was just one of those things that just seemed to pop up on Netflix. I kind of wish that probably the movie would have done well enough in theaters, I think, but
because it looks like it got a limited release in 2011, and I didn't even hear about it when it came out. So
definitely more of like a sort of a mid-budget, probably independent film, but it was, that one's a lot of fun, and that's definitely a good recommendation.
And the other thing is it came out in 2011 limited. I think it had been made in like 2009, and it hit like different festivals and stuff, but then it was released limited in 2011, and then finally like people started seeing it in 2012, but that's when they took Cabin in the Woods off of the shelf and put it into theaters. Yeah. And I think that the year later when Cabin in the Woods came out, Tucker and Dale was just like forgotten.
It was kind of forgotten, but they're definitely, I mean, they cover a little bit thematically similar in that they play a lot with horror tropes, but Cabin in the Woods definitely is a big, kind of more broad strokes.
Yeah, they kind of cover everything, whereas this is more just the hillbilly.
Just kind of the hillbilly killer sort of thing.
And yeah, I would Tucker and Dale versus Evil is easily one of my top 10 favorite movies of all time. Like, I've seen it several times. It's my go-to movie when I just need to pop on something. Just kind of, it seems weird because there's a lot of death and it is like a horror comedy. So, but I mean,
it's still a comedy.
But yeah, it's still a comedy, and it hits the comedy beats so perfectly. And it, even though the last third, they kind of have to force the story a certain direction, but I think they still pull it off really well.
No, I can agree with that.
So anyway, and that I do believe is still on Netflix, but don't quote me on that.
Yeah, it's definitely pretty easy to find.
Yeah, so I would highly recommend that.
Well, since we're going for more horror comedy and horror trash, I feel like the other, I'd say this is even more obvious than Tucker and Dale versus Evil. If you're going to do a comedy that involves zombies, you really just have to go with Shaun of the Dead.
Yes.
Because that is just pure Edgar Wright, Simon Pegg, and Nick Frost madness. And that whole trilogy, the Three Flavors of Coronado trilogy, they're all extremely good. But Shaun of the Dead is definitely very aware of the horror tropes it's playing with. And what's nice about Edgar Wright in general, when he does comedy, his comedy is like very good at being visual comedy, which I think works especially in like a horror movie context. So, I mean, everything that's pretty been said about it is just, it's so much fun and just extremely well edited together. Because if there's one thing that Edgar Wright knows how to do, it's how to edit together a really good visual joke. And then what's also like about sort of the Edgar Wright style of comedy, that it's just very joke dense, so it's just joke. So
if something doesn't hit, then it's something's going to come up soon that does hit for you.
And then also they just put in so many little tiny details, a lot of care of everything, what's going on. So it's definitely a comedy that you can revisit, and it seems like it gets better every single time you watch it.
Kind of like The Exorcist.
Yeah.
It's getting funnier every single time I see it.
I'm a dead guy. Nobody.
You mentioned the fact you're talking to a dead guy.
This is another very good horror comedy, but that's definitely more on like a haunted house movie from the ghost perspective.
Yeah, that's more more haunting than zombie there.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I agree with Shaun of the Dead is another great choice for zombie horror comedy. And then you have the hillbilly horror comedy with Tucker and Dale. That might actually be a good triple feature there to go both directions off of.
You could just ignore Redneck Zombies entirely and just watch Tucker and Dale versus Evil and Shaun of the Dead.
That's true. If you take those two movies, it's got elements of both things they were trying to go for, only done so much better. But I applaud them for trying, because it looks like it must have been some people that because if they were trying to find distributors, it means that they hadn't made a movie before.
Yeah, they made it through sheer force of will and gumption. And I think, just like with anything, that is very much, that should be applauded. Be applauded.
That, again, like we mentioned on the last episode, is what was great about Troma, is that they do seek out those people. And yeah, was this something that is going to make them a lot of money? Probably not. But they're getting these people's work out there, and giving them a shot.
I agree, and I think that sort of those smaller kind of boutique distributors and boutique productions are still important, especially in today's box office, when a lot of the major studios are really just kind of ignoring them, trying to go for more of the big budget superhero extravaganzas with like Avengers 37 Infinity Doorknob or something. So what kind of movie should we watch next time? What genre do you think?
I'm looking at science fiction, mystery, or even going back to cult.
Yeah, let's try cult, I guess. Maybe we'll end up with a cult comedy.
All right. Spin the wheel.
Spin to win. Spin to win. I'd like an E, please, Alec.
We've got Frightmare
from 1974.
And this is on Amazon Prime. Surprise, surprise. This site really likes Amazon Prime. It is, 1974. In 1957, Dorothy and Edmund Yates were committed to an institution for the criminally insane. She asks, I can't read today. I apologize. She for acts of murder and cannibalism, and he for covering up her crimes. 15 years later, they are pronounced fit for society and released. However, in Dorothy's case, the doctors may have jumped the gun a bit. Edmund and eldest daughter Jackie try to discover just how far mother's bloodlust has taken her. Meanwhile, youngest daughter Debbie begins to explore the crazy roots of her family tree as fully as possible. That sounds really convoluted.
Yeah, and I have not heard of this film before. Have you?
I don't think I have.
But I guess the only reason that involves, I think, that it makes me raise an eyebrow is that the year 1974 in cannibalism in 1974 was the same year as Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh, so we're going to have a little...
Inevitably, we're probably going to talk about that movie.
that might be one of our picks. So, Frightmare. Watch it on Amazon Prime. Or just listen to us bash it when we find out it's really bad. What?
Who knows? It could be a hidden gem.
It could be. I mean, it's got this weird artwork on the cover with... It's kind of a like painting type with this crazed looking man and a electric drill.
I think that might be the mom.
Oh, okay. Is that a lady?
I don't know.
I don't know what it is, but hey, it's got a bloody drill on it.
We'll find out soon enough.
So until next time, lay off the moonshine.
And I guess drink Busch Light instead.
Yeah,
this episode was sponsored by Busch Light.
I wish Busch Light, send us a check.
Sponsor us.